Horror movies have come a long way from stuff like this and when I look at some of the horror movies now, I can't help but think what brought movies to this point. So I did some digging and found the top 10 most iconic horror movies of all time. I'm your host Andrew, let's get right into this. At number 10 spot, we have Scream in 1996. At a time when the slasher genre was dying, Scream came in and completely 180'd the way we look at slasher films. I mean, in the beginning of the film, we believed that Drew Barrymore was the main protagonist of the film, but then in the next few minutes, we begin to see that it's simply not the case. As mentioned, they weren't like any other horror films at the time. It was one of the first times where we gained the concept of two killers instead of one, and despite being horrific and scary in some parts, it showed lots of self-parody. The movie poked fun at a lot of the ongoing and repetitive actions done in previous horror and slasher films, but they did it without going over the top, and it was just perfect. On top of that, Ghostface as a villain was very unique to many viewers. Opposed to the other overpowered villains who don't seem to put any effort to killing, Ghostface was fast, but he was also very clumsy, almost showing that he's desperate to capture his victims. Basically, Scream saved the horror genre when it was in the trenches in the 90s, so this film will always remain iconic. At number 9 spot, we have Paranormal Activity. Whether you think about it now, Paranormal Activity belongs on the Mount Rushmore of all horror movies. When this movie first came out, everyone and their mother knew about it. It was such a hit, it ended up totaling around $193 million at the box office with only a $15,000 budget. After its release in 2007, everyone witnessed a new type of horror in the movie realm, something that almost looked real and something that made us wonder if these paranormal events could happen to us. If you haven't watched the movie, it follows a young couple and their experiences into moving to a new home in San Diego. After only a few days, Katie believes an evil spirit that has haunted her in the past is now back in her new home. So the husband sets up these infamous cameras around the house to record the paranormal activity, and the rest is history. Number 8, The Conjuring. The true story of The Conjuring begins with the first film, which focuses on the Perron family. In January 1971, the Perron family moved into a 14-house farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, where Carolyn, Roger, and their 5 daughters began to notice strange things happening almost immediately after they moved in. It started small. Caroline would notice that the broom went missing or seemed to have moved from place to place on its own. She would hear the sound of something scraping against the kettle in the kitchen when no one was there. The girls began to notice spirits wandering around the house, though for the most part, they were harmless. There were a few, however, that were very angry, and this movie showcased all of that. At number 7 spot, we have The Grudge. This sound is the last thing you want to hear before encountering the enraged spirit known as The Grudge. The movie is very well known globally with different iterations in both Japanese and English. The Japanese one was named Ju-on, The Grudge, and was released in 2002. Then 2 years later on in 2004, The Grudge was Americanized and released all over theaters in North America. Despite some backlash, it would go on to gross $187 million from only a $10 million budget. And although many argue that the Japanese one was better, I personally believe that both have their top spots in the horror genre. Everything about the film is sure to inflict sheer terror. The Grudge draws on horrors from both the real and paranormal. The Grudge is essentially a cursed spirit who is usually someone who passed away from something very tragic, causing them to come back and haunt others. So go check out this movie if you haven't. Number 6 spot, we have Nightmare on Elm Street. On to another slasher film, we have the 1984 version of Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by Wes Craven. It was the first time when we didn't feel safe in our own dreams because Freddy Krueger could just be there waiting for us. Craven also put his own little twist into this film, which made it his own. Instead of having a big muscular silent guy in a mask, he created a smaller chatty villain instead. Instead of having everyone believe nightmares were a normal, natural thing, he wanted us to believe that something worse awaits us there. Other than that, Freddy Krueger was an amazing villain. He was both brutal and gory with completely burned flesh. And the more you fear him, the higher chances he'll be waiting for you in your dreams. Although his motives were unclear, he had a very good time doing his horrific acts. You can call him a showman in a way. A very notable scene is the first bedroom murder scene. After watching it, you'll just be sitting there in complete disbelief. In the Humber list, we have Halloween. Halloween came at a good time in 1978 following the slasher hype from Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas. What is most notable about Halloween is the main villain, Michael Myers. And he kills a lot in this movie. And when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. This movie brought violence to the front door of all those who were even slightly interested in horror movies. This movie was well feared from young boys and girls, as Halloween was a time where they were granted more freedom than usual, except when they believe all things are good everything changes in the matter of seconds once Michael Myers arrives. He is relentless, almost looking superhuman in many scenes. It seems that nothing can stop him, making him one of the most feared villains of all time. Imagine doing everything to stop someone and they're just walking through it all. Yup, that's Michael Myers. Number 4 spot, we have It. Everyone's favorite dancing clown is back. This movie was the sole reason for many people developing a phobia towards clowns, and if you watch the original films, then you would see why. Although it's listed as a TV miniseries, we're going to label it as a movie for the sake of the video. Many people have seen the recent adaptations of It, so the story is pretty much well known, except the 1990 version had many things that the 2017 version didn't have. First of all, they didn't have Tim Curry. His superb acting taught everyone to never talk to strangers, or might I say, clowns. His version of Pennywise doesn't appear to be outright bad from a distance, but then he'll do some unexpected things to catch the kids and even us, the viewers, off guard. This would make sense because it would actually give more reason for Georgie trusting the clown in the sewer in the first place. His Pennywise wanted to psychologically abuse you until he went on for the final kill, and let alone some of the scenes in this movie were downright unexpected. Number 3 spot, we have Child's Play. We really never thought dolls could look scary before we had Chucky. Chucky is a murderous doll who was previously a real serial killer that transferred his soul into this doll. As a doll, he tries to act innocent, but behind the scenes, he's a psychotic monster waiting for his right time to strike. I guess another reason why Chucky is feared by many is that he's just a doll. Everyone has a doll, so this made everyone believe their doll would come to life and just go on a sudden killing spree. And though Chucky has cartoonish features, he feels unexpectedly human. In the end of the movie, we also see a burnt Chucky, which is even more terrifying for those who watch. Seeing him run around after all these different characters. Number 2, Friday the 13th. Just like the other slasher films I mentioned on this list, Friday the 13th was another one of those films to propel the genre to new limits. This movie took violence and took it up a notch during a time when no other movie dared to. Other than that, it's completely shaked up the teenage population, as the murders all took place within a small campground. Apart from this, many believe that the movie is overrated, and although it does have a lot of low quality production and subpar acting, we have to remember this was released in 1980. Jason Voorhees as the main antagonist was the spotlight. He was a silent killing machine, only wielding a machete and the iconic hockey mask. It's believed he has taken the lives of over 200 people over the years of his killing spree, and although he is human, he shows the craziest amounts of tolerance towards pain, and it doesn't seem like anyone stops him from getting to his goals. Who would you rather have running at you? Jason, Freddy Krueger, or Michael Myers? Pick your poison. At number 1 spot, we have The Last Exorcism. The Last Exorcism, which was released in 2010 and directed by Daniel Stamp, is one of the most iconic demonic possession movies of all time. This movie is about a religious minister who is struggling both financially and mentally. So he decided to shoot a documentary to expose the fraud within his own ministry. Except what he finds is something a lot more real than that. This is when he decides to help a fellow follower named Louis Sweetser, who believed his daughter was possessed. When they arrived, she really was possessed and shit hits the fan really quickly. The demon that is present in the movie is Abalam. These are the top 10 most iconic horror movie villains of all time. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below which villain is your favorite, and also which movie is your favorite out of this whole list. I'm your host Andrew, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.